Welcome back to the Webby and O'Neill channel. There's plenty to unpack, probably too much to unpack onto Jim Ratcliffe's interviews with the Overlap, the BBC and more yesterday. And that breaking news today that Manchester United are looking at a new home with a 100,000-seater stadium expected. We're going to give you the quotes that have come out from Jim Ratcliffe, Omar Barada and the likes. And plus we've got a minute video for you later on in the video for you to have a look at the designs that have been drawn up by Fosters and Partners. Tongue-tied, I think I've talked too much. So I'm going to get straight on to you on that interview, what Ratcliffe done with Gary Neville on the Overlap.
I looked at the Gary Neville interview and I think to myself, he'll look back at that and he'll think, I should have done better. I should have put more questions to him and let him answer. I thought he got too involved as an ex-player, as a fan, as a pundit. I thought to myself, halfway through it, I thought he went off track. Which is understandable when you're involved as an ex-player and a fan. I think there was a few mistakes in it, to be honest with you, and I do look at one of the mistakes, and I think it was the biggest mistake when, as a fan, we all wanted Ratcliffe to come in and buy the club. We wanted someone to come in and buy the club as a whole and get rid of the Glazers. That's what it was all about. That's what we was all hoping for. And Gary Neville sort of asked the question, but didn't ask the question. And this was the biggest mistake I took from the whole interview on the Overlap. And it was when he said, you wanted the club as a whole. But it was like, it's a question, but he never put it to him because he never gave him the chance to answer it. And I wanted to hear that. I wanted to hear, well, why did you want it as a whole? Why didn't you get it? And he sort of just rushed through it. And I think that was the biggest mistake, because that would have been interesting to hear, like Ratcliffe wanted the whole club and why he didn't get it. And he never settled on the question and he rushed through it. So I think looking back, I think Gary Neville will look at that and say, I should have concentrated on that. That's what the fans wanted to hear. Because when you look at the Glazers and everything at United, everyone wanted him out. And if there was an opportunity for Sir Jim Ratcliffe to buy it, and clearly Gary knows that he wanted to buy it as a whole, then he should have just got the question and let him answer it. And he didn't. He moved on too fast. And that was disappointing for me. And that's one of the reasons why I think Gary Neville shouldn't have done this interview. Someone else should have done it, because the emotion and
wanting to get too much out as well. And like you say, that was one of the biggest questions I was hoping to hear and an answer from Ratcliffe, as well as why he didn't have or why he didn't actually buy the club outright as well, and what the complications were, if they were any, or whether he himself wanted to buy the club outright as well.
Yeah, but that question should have been answered, right? Because it would have led into other questions like, are you going to buy? Are you going to buy United? Are you going to buy the Glazers out in the summer? Is that a plan? Is it feasible? You know, other questions could have come from it, because at the moment, we know we've seen protests and everything for years and years. We've had the latest one over the weekend and that. And it would have led to a little bit of hope that the fans could have said, right, he's answered these questions. He's looking to buy the club outright. So for me,
it'd give us clarity as well, and a bit of a direction of where to go and what we're actually aiming for as fans. For me personally, I think some of the questions that were given to him, I do think they were decent, not just from Gary Neville, but from the BBC, and some of the responses. A lot of it is not what we want to hear as fans, but at the end of the day, we've been asking for clarity for so many years from the Glazer family to speak publicly, and Jim Ratcliffe has actually done that, so maybe he deserves a bit of credit for that.
Yeah, he deserves a bit of credit coming out, but what we're seeing here now is a PR blitz. Yeah. What's going on out there? That's clear. Soon as I seen Ratcliffe attending the game, I knew something was coming out.
Me and you was having a conversation during the game when we seen the pictures against Man United and Arsenal, and you said straight away, protests were today. You can guarantee that PR machine will kick into overdrive tomorrow.
And that PR machine has kicked in big time. More news coming out today on the stadium, which we'll get into. But I just look at it and I think to myself, missed opportunities there. You know, you talk about the Glazers, like the criticism was put, you know, I'm not denying Gary didn't put criticism to Jim Ratcliffe about the Glazers, and there was a fair bit of criticism coming from Gary Neville, fine. But what he did was, what I thought, he gave criticism about the Glazers, and then he carried on, saying things about the Glazers, sort of asking one question after another without Jim Ratcliffe able to answer it. He gave like 5 questions, and then he didn't answer. Basically, as I read it, I might be wrong how I see it, but he didn't answer any criticism on Glazers at all, because there was that much in there that at the end of it, anything on Glazer, he was able to bat away just like that and change the subject. Very intelligent man, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, no doubt about it, right? But he was able to bat away from it. And I just thought, the early part of the conversation, the interview, Gary was too stern, and it was like too staged. That's how I seen it. And then the fan bit took over, the emotion took over. And when you talk about the Glazers, we all get emotional over it.
I'm going to give you a little bit more detail here on some of the stuff that he did come back out with, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, on the Glazer family. When asked by Gary Neville, he said they're 3,000 miles away, and they gave the management at Manchester United a lot of rope. If you look at some of the characters in English football that are owners, they are heavily involved in the details of running the club. They gave management an awful lot of rope, too much rope, obviously. The previous 2 teams of management have to take a lot of blame in the decisions they made at the football club, I'm afraid. It's not just the Glazer family, and he's obviously pointing to Ed Woodward, Richard Arnold, and they have got to take a lot of blame in the decision-making that was run at this football club. But ultimately, it's the Glazers' responsibility, and it was their decision-making in putting them two in the running of the football club day to day.
Yeah, I think we all know the history of what's gone on in the past about who was running the club, and it's their responsibility. And yes, the Glazers are the ultimate responsibility, and that's why everyone is like adamant, get these Glazers out, and I've been for a long time and that. But the Glazers aren't going, and that's why I've got to go back to, like, he was asked about the Glazers. He didn't go on about it. He didn't go on about the opportunity to buy the club as a whole, and then we wanted to see the opportunity down the line. That would have given us more hope, having that answered and that question put to him, where we would have had hope as fans, because we're watching all the interviews, we're reading the interviews, we're watching everywhere about what's going on, and we want hope. There doesn't seem to be hope at the moment, and what we want is someone to buy the club and get rid of the Glazers, and I didn't see that hope given to me in the questions and any answers what was there. And the responsibility, we all know the responsibility. We could go on and on and on about it, and that's what's frustrating. And I think that frustration got to Gary, where he kept pushing and pushing without waiting for an answer, to be honest with you. But looking down the line, he knows what's going on in the club, Sir Jim Ratcliffe. He knows the financials. I listened to him about the financials, and he's being ruthless right in it. And that, unfortunately, the Glazers weren't ruthless. Will he get rid of him? I'm not too sure whether that's going to be there. We've not been that was not answered, and I think the financials there. I think there's a lot more to come. There was a lot of subject matter given on the financials, and I think when you look at it, there's more to come.
Yeah, for me, I thought Gary did actually push back at one point with the Glazers, and it was down to them, their responsibility in how the club's actually been run, specifically in the last 10 years. But I've seen Sir Jim Ratcliffe come back and combat that by talking more about himself as a fan, and also that these protests, maybe in his way, his language, wouldn't be happening if the performances on the pitch would have been much, much better than what we've been seeing. And I think he's disillusioned with that. You know, the protests, what I've seen, especially over the weekend, I can't comment on other protests. You know, that's up to fans groups to come on here and explain. But specifically the one on the weekend was for the Glazers out movement. And he batted that away. And like I did say earlier on, I didn't expect him to come on any of the interviews and criticise publicly the Glazers, because I don't think that's good for business at all, especially if you're running one of the biggest football clubs in the world. You do not want infighting in there. You want to get to the main points, the main causes of the problems, and rectify them. And I do think he's actually trying to do that. Is it a good enough way? Is it the right way? Is it a risk? Have we got the right people in charge actually making them decisions where we feel comfortable that in the future, you know, all these problems will be sorted out? I'm not too sure mistakes that they have made, in particular with the likes of Erik ten Hag. Dan Ashworth coming in. But as fans, our seasons wrote off. All the optimism that we had coming into the season was wrote off because of their decision-making before the season even started. Now, he did go on to that his team, the likes of Omar Barada, Jason Wilcox, Sir David Brailsford and himself didn't have much time together to get down to the root causes and the root issues of the football club to make them big decisions. But for me, you're a big businessman, you're a billionaire, you've worked with the likes of Sir David Brailsford, Omar Barada, coming into the football club, Jason Wilcox. As fans, we all knew what some of the problems were, and a lot of it was down to player recruitment, players on the pitch. And that one big decision, what they failed to get right, has cost us our season, I believe. Because I do believe if Ruben Amorim had that summer, we'd have seen an upturn in performances on the pitch, but that has not happened.
Yeah, I thought some of the questions there about criticism about what's gone on since Sir Jim Ratcliffe came in, he answered it. He answered it clearly, to be honest with you. Didn't sit on it, which you wouldn't expect someone to sit on a question there. What is basically criticising yourself. So I just thought to myself, he handled it well and he moved it on. And I think what he was trying to do, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, in that was like, try and give us a bit of hope, but also trying to explain so we understand this isn't over. I've got to get the costs down. I've got to get everything ready so we can make a charge going forward. Overall, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, yeah, give him credit for coming on. But also, I think I'm very disappointed, and I think a lot of United fans will be disappointed in that the hope going forward isn't there what we all want. He wants to turn it round. He's telling us how he's going to turn it round, and he's got to get the finances straight. Getting rid of people and that, he wasn't comfortable with it, but these are things what have to happen. And I just look at it going forward, and I say to myself, this summer, we need to know, and I think we should have known now, if Sir Jim Ratcliffe is in any position to take this club on his own and just get rid of the Glazers.
As you'll see on screen now, there's a bit of a graph up there to make you a little bit more aware of what's actually going on with the finances to do with transfers and players that we're actually still paying for, which is, let's face it though, largely common in the football world now to spread them transfer fee costs over a contract length for at least 3 to 4 to 5 years. But he actually publicly named players like Anthony, Casemiro, Onana, Højlund, Sancho. Especially if you're Onana and Højlund, let's concentrate on them two. What are you thinking when you're publicly being named like that? Would you feel as though like he's trying to put you down, as though you wasn't worth that transfer fee?
Well, in all the interviews he's done and that, he did say at some point, I'm not sure which interview it was, to be honest with you.
BBC Sport, that was.
Yeah, but he turned around and he said, players just aren't good enough. Now, when you've mentioned Onana and Højlund there, they might be thinking, are we part of what he's saying we're not good enough? And then he's talking about the finances and that. And I'm thinking to myself, was that a good point to make? Was it a good, for the players to sit there and think, here's the owner here and he's calling us out. Is he calling us out? It's sort of like 50-50 what's really being said there.
Well, let's have it right, to be fair, though. When you actually look back and you sit back and think about it in recent weeks, Ruben Amorim's kind of said the same, though, hasn't he? Not maybe publicly named individuals, but he's kind of used the squad as a collective, that this club isn't, well, these players aren't good enough to take us forward and get to them heights that the club actually, where the club actually wants us to get to.
Yeah, but this is another point of what I'm not happy with this interview. I've time and time again, people out there will remember I've said it. Jim Ratcliffe, I've said, just keep quiet. You need to keep quiet. So when serious questions are coming along, it's sort of turning around saying, oh, I don't know that. My team's dealing with that. And then he's giving details and that. So Jim Ratcliffe, I think this is really the wrong time for an interview like this to come out. The club's in turmoil. The team's playing rubbish. Yes, okay, he talks about the Arsenal game, how he was happy with that, the way United played and everything else like that. But that's just one game and he just happened to be sat there. But the club and the team is in turmoil. And I think doing this interview now was actually the wrong time. because there's too many questions unanswered, and we want more detail, and we've not got that, and it just gives more and more ammunition to what's going on. I think the fans themselves, like most of the fans I've spoke to, right, understand what's going on, and they know that the summer is so important and all that, and I think it should have been left to the summer. I think right now, with 10 games to go, an opportunity there in the Europa League and that, for this interview to be done, I think it just brings more doom and gloom on it. So the timing of it is baffling to me, and I think it's baffling to many people, because it just heaps more pressure and more doubts and more questions of what's going on. And to me, wrong timing, and I'm very disappointed in this, but I expected it to come out. As soon as I seen Sir Jim Ratcliffe, I knew there was going to be a big PR push.
You've just answered the question there, and that's what Manchester United are good at. Spinning the PR, changing it from a narrative of protest, fan protests, angry, frustrated about the ownership over the last 10 years. And Sir Jim Ratcliffe rocks up, takes the blame, the brunt of it away from the Glazers, and talks about the current issues, past issues and future issues at the football club. And like I said before, I do give a little bit of positivity towards Jim Ratcliffe for actually doing this interview, because we've been starved for communication from the actual owners of the football club, or co-owners, whatever you want to call them, the Glazers. I'm sure there's a few choice words out there to describe him. But for me, some of the questions that he answered, I thought he'd done really well. I think the one big question, like we've touched on, about him, why he didn't take the full football club and purchase it, that's the biggest question for me. And I think a lot of fans out there, and it's been left unanswered from 2 or 3 different interviews, and I cannot believe that question has not been put to him, of why he didn't go and purchase the full football club. And just give us some details on that, and a bit of clarity as football fans, so at least we know where we stand, and maybe possibly know in the future of what possibly can happen as well.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm going to go off that. Talked about finances, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, the Glazers. There's a lot
Just
more
an overall view, isn't it?
There's a lot more to unpack, to be honest with you, in what he was discussing about the finances. But Ruben Amorim, he likes Ruben. He thinks he's here for the long term.
Yeah.
And to be honest, it was pretty good to hear the actual quotes from him as well.
Yeah, that was a good thing. I've always said, like, Ruben Amorim's staying. There's no worry about that. This is what Sir Jim Ratcliffe's done. He's already made the mistake, cleared that up about Erik ten Hag. So Ruben Amorim's here to stay. So there's no more doubt in anyone's mind what's happening with Ruben Amorim. So he's going to back him. He should back him in the summer. So it's all about the money in the summer with Ruben Amorim, to be honest with you.
Yeah, he does see that he's here for the long term, and he said he's a good guy, he's working hard, and I think he's doing a great job. And there's been a lot of negativity, I suppose, around fans, or fans who are at the least sceptical that Ruben Amorim is the right man for the job. But he seems to have a lot of backing, not just off the co-owner, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, but everyone inside the club, because maybe they're looking at it and they see the monumental task that he's got to actually turn this squad around, because it's just not good enough.
Yeah. I think he's got the backing of everyone inside the club, because I think the people what have been brought in, who brought Ruben Amorim in, have said, he's our man. We're staying with him. So let's have no doubts here. Let's all work together and don't get off track, because Ruben's here for next season. We're going to invest in players. We're going to change things around, and Ruben Amorim is going to take us where we want to be. That's how I see it. So I think everyone inside the club is fully backing it. Those who are staying, shall I say, there's some obviously inside the club who think, well, I'm not really bothered because I'm on my way out. But hey, that's just part and parcel, right, of changing the club round. Once you've got everyone out and then you've got everybody on board, I think Ruben Amorim with the backing should do well here.
He did mention Bruno as well. He said there's some great players in the squad. As we know, the captain is a fabulous footballer. We definitely need Bruno. He's a fantastic footballer. A lot of us out there always support Bruno because of the effort he does put in on the actual pitch. And obviously a lot of quality there with Bruno as well. And it seems that he's holding up this actual football club on the pitch, on his own, on his shoulders. Going on to some other news.
Yep.
The news today that was released from Manchester United. Sir Jim Ratcliffe's done interviews again. Omar Barada, Foster and Partners. And looks like Manchester United have got a new home, and it's going to be a 100,000-seater stadium
this is proper PR, full blast gone in. I've looked at it all. Some fantastic pictures. You know, if you get time, get out there, look at all the pictures. We've got something on here. And I just think, wow, what a stadium, what a future, what a vision. Fantastic by the architects and everything else like that. But in every interview I've looked at and listened to, all he hears to Jim Ratcliffe, he throws that one word in. One word, and it's if, and it's all about the regeneration, about the government. Rachel Reeves, if the regeneration goes ahead, then the stadium's being built. That's what I take from it. The stadium being built is all down to the regeneration, and that's going to cost a lot of money from the government to pump in. And he keeps using that word, if. And that's what puts doubt in my mind, and I think should put doubt in a lot of people's minds, that we're waiting for the government to go ahead. That might take a few years.
Yeah, like you said about a bit of a timeline, he said it depends how quickly the government get going with their regeneration. I think they want to get going quite quickly. And then Omar Barada, the chief executive, on the actual funding says it's still quite early and can't speculate too much on the funding as a PLC. Very attractive investment opportunity, he then later said. Estimated cost as well is going to be £2 billion. And yeah, there's a lot of memories there for a lot of people out there. It's an emotional subject. I'm sure a lot of you out there will want to get involved in that to give your overall opinions, and we could just sit here now, discuss it, which we are going to probably do on a live video tomorrow, because there's a lot more to get into where we want your questions and we want to interact with you directly. But to leave today's video, we're going to just show you this minute clip from actual the Daily Mail and Gary Neville.
A new landmark will rise, a new theatre for dreams to come alive, a design inspired by the Red Devil's trident, a modern take on our industrial roots. 100,000 fans, united as one. A place for glory, a place for pride, a sea of red, the loudest crowd. A majestic arena where history and future collide. A public space, a focal point, a catalyst for renewal, full of hope for our fans and community. A new home for United, a new place for Manchester, a new future on familiar ground.
On Manchester United's possible future 100,000-seater stadium. Some great artwork there, some great graphics. Does it get you a little bit excited, or is it making you even more sadder knowing that the fact that you could be leaving Old Trafford, where you've had so many great memories? Thanks for joining us, everyone. We'll get back to you with a live video tomorrow, so come and join us, get that notification on, and don't forget to leave a like on today's video. Much appreciated, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.